Internationally, hundreds of Palestinians killed after a huge blast at a hospital in Gaza City. But Israel says the explosion was caused by rockets misfired by another group, the Palestinian Islamic Jihadists. Other jihad and both sides deny blame.
Oh yeah, it's raining in Nairobi. Oh, it's nothing to clap about.
Well, it depends. It depends on where you live. If you live and you're tiptoeing out of your house, well, not really to clap about.
Okay.
But
we even have wildlife in the studio this morning because of the rains. Good morning, welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. I promise us to be a rather wet Wednesday.
And a very good morning to you. I trust you're doing well this 18th day of October 2023. It's great to have you here on Morning Cafe. And of course, remember to put in your feedback at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. I'm Flora Lemuki.
I'm usually standing in Ringita. It is the 18th day of October, and most definitely this particular month feels like it is going quite fast. But then, to our top story this particular morning.
To the top story now, the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development has issued a notice to increase monthly rent on all government residential houses. Principal Secretary Charles Hinga, in a letter to his Treasury counterpart Chris Kipto, sought to increase the rent by 10% beginning next month. PS Hinga noted that the notice for the intended increase was first issued on January 18, 2021, since the figure had stagnated for nearly 2 decades. The State Department for Housing and Urban Development sees this hike in rent as an avenue to increase its revenue through enhancing appropriations in aid. Once approved by Treasury, occupants living in government residential housing will pay 10% more starting 1st November this year. And that's the top story this morning. Let's now take a look at the diary today.
Well, on today's diary, of course, the UHC conference enters day 3, and the Universal Health Coverage Conference enters day 3 today in Kericho County, with the focus being on human resource in the health sector for an empowered workforce. The CS for Public Service, Moses Kuria, is expected to grace the event, as well as the Chief of Staff of the Public Service, that is Felix Kosgei, and also the Principal Secretary for the National Ministry of National Administration, that is Raymond Omolo. And Kawira Mwangaza's impeachment motion, after being tabled tomorrow, the Speaker of the County Assembly of Meru has invited the public participation exercise for the impeachment of the governor after the motion was tabled before the County Assembly yesterday by the Matungu member of County Assembly, Evans Karia, and that exercise kicks off today. And away from that, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has summoned Mavoko Member of Parliament Patrick Makau, members of the Lukenya Society, among others, at the Office of the Land Fraud Investigations at 8 a.m. this morning, following the escalation of the Adi River demolitions. And another event that will be happening today is the Kenya Homes Expo. And the expo will bring together industry professionals, investors, to highlight the trends in the real estate sector in this year. And away from that, the Public Investment Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture will be meeting with the Board of Directors, Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer of the NHIF to adduce evidence on the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the NHIF for the financial year 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. Also, the Committee on Education will have a meeting with the PS State Department for TVET, and the PS is expected to brief the committee on the report of the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. And today is the World Menopause Day. This day seeks to inform and educate about menopause, raising awareness about women should expect and encouraging them to get the help they need from healthcare providers and other support workers. And that is what we have on our diary this morning. Time now to look at the dailies.
Okay. Let's take a look at the dailies this morning. I start off with the People Daily, and today on the People Daily, MP to be grilled over land fraud. That's a big headline on the People Daily today. Mavoko demolitions, legislator among 30 suspects summoned by DCI to shed light on irregular sale of Portland cement land as Raila blocked from visiting scene. The full report is on page 4. And faces of some of those individuals who've been summoned by the DCI, Julius Mutua and Patrick Macau, the MP. At the bottom of the page, the front page, Oliver Kiribai. It says the society's case crumbled due to their inability to produce the original title, contract documents, or any evidence of payment. That's a big headline on the front page of the People Daily today. Other highlights on the front page at the top there. High cost of fuel sparks uproar in Parliament. Page 6. Lawmakers demand answers over why consumers have been paying more at the pump. Interesting debate there. On other highlights on the news beat, all set for Mashujaa Day event. Highlight of national celebrations will be launch of universal health coverage, says PS Omolo at venue inspection. In business, KRA collects 3.8 billion shillings from tax amnesty program. And in sports, marathoner Ekiru gets 10-year ban for doping. Billed as the 6th fastest runner of all time, 31-year-old suffers big blow for using banned drug. And that's the front page of the People Daily this morning.
Well, on the third day today, Mavoko demolitions make headlines. And on the Daily Nation, goes with the same headline as People Daily, talking about MP faces probe, land saga, day of dramas, police block Azimio leader Raila Odinga from accessing demolition site. And Daily Nation asks, person of interest, Mavoko MP Patrick Macau is among 30 individuals, including officials of land buying companies, former police chiefs and land registrars summoned by detectives today over the sale and settlement of squatters on parcels claimed by cement farm. And that is on page 5. And we have the photo there of Mavoko Member of Parliament. And on page 6 and 7, still in the same, and they're telling you the red flags that homeowners ignored. One of the clearest signals that the East African Portland cement land dwellers will lose their assets emerged in November last year. It came from the then Trade Cabinet Secretary, Moses Kuria. That is on page 6 and 7. And they list a number of these particular red flags. Number 1 being CS Moses Kuria's warning. The then CS Trade proclaimed in November last year that structures will be flattened. Number 2, lack of titles. Affected residents said the only ownership documents they had were certificates with a promise of title deeds by the end of this year. And number 3, relatively cheap property. So a local remembered a time when a 50 by 100 plot went for about 50,000, only 35 minutes away from the capital on a motorbike and 34 minutes via the expressway. This was cheap compared to other plots in the vicinity. And number 4, various notices. So this Africa Portland Cement Company has been giving warnings over the years in various forms, including on billboards, these particular red flags. While other stories given prominence on Daily Nation, Ruto pitches for SGR linking Africa's east and western courts. That is on the back page of the Daily Nation this particular morning. And they quote a particular figure there, 670 billion Kenyan shillings. That is the amount of money that Kenya has accrued in loans to build the standard gauge railway to Naivasha. Other stories in matters politics, Raila out to overhaul ODM elections board, and in matters education, overwhelmed, overworked, ill-skilled and underpaid inside the woes of junior school teachers. That is on page 12. And in the corridors of justice, Kabura put on her defense in 791 million shillings NOS, one fraud case. That is on page 3. That is on the Daily Nation this morning.
Well, and let's now have a look at the Standard this morning. The top headline there, DCI goes after MP police bosses over Mavoko land. And at least 6 police chiefs, 2 county heads, officials of Aimilu Kenya Society and Mavoko Member of Parliament Patrick Makau are expected to shed light on how Portland land was sold fraudulently. That story there is pictured on page 2 to 3 of the Standard. And the 30 persons of interest expected to be grilled today. And in October 15th is a date when the government agencies descended on the Portland property, demolishing houses and businesses. Still on the Standard, on the very top strip, 15 officers to answer on kidnap charges. That is on page 8 of the Standard. And cherry unsold as farmers set for harvest. Matters agriculture there on page 10 of the Standard this morning. And on the Enterprise pullout, inside state fish industry master plan. That is the story covered on the Enterprise inside the Standard this morning. And some other sports there, Stars are raring to go in WC qualifiers. Well, and what we have on the right strip of left rather of the Standard this morning, foreigners among Lamu most wanted terrorists. Then pictured there address Martin Mueller, Suleiman Maktoum, Fahad and Jamalo. That's the pictures of them. They are among others on page 2 of the Standard this morning. And in matters business, Treasury turns to Kenyans for tax ideas. That piece there is on page 17 of the Standard this morning.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo hii Jumatano. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, uhuni wa mchana, maswali tele huku kampuni kitangaza mpango wa kuuza ardhi yenye utata siku chache baada ya ubomoaji. Utata unaoibuka ubomoaji wa makazi katika eneo la Mavoko Athi River, Machakos, unaonyesha unafiki, kampuni ya EAPCC ikibomoa nyumba huku ikiuza ardhi yake. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Pale chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, mashaka ya mwangaza yaendelea. MCAs Meru waanza mchakato wa pili wa kumwondoa afisini kwa misingi ya mashtaka 7. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Kwingineko, Kabura ana kesi ya kujibu koti, yasema mshukiwa mkuu katika kashfa ya uporaji wa shilingi milioni 791 iliyokumba shirika la NYS. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Kwingineko, achuma hela kukuza mipapai. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, maombi kutozwa ushuru, wahubiri kulipa 20,000 kabla kuandaa kesha za maombi. A very interesting debate there. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 4. Na kwingineko, Ezekiel hakutulipia nauli, Seneta Mugatana asema akijibu tetesi, mhubiri aligharamia ziara ya maseneta Kilifi. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Na hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
And actually, just to pick it up from that particular story on Ezekiel hakutulipia nauli. Now, the Star this morning focuses on that particular story, and it asks who bankrolled MP's trip to Ezekiel Church. And they also ask, reports indicate a visit was financed by preacher, but Senate leadership remains tight-lipped. They give an extensive on that from page 4 and also on page 5. The Star also takes a look at the whole rains this particular morning. And Wilfred was asking, should we be clamping the fact that the rains are here? Well, again, it really depends on where the rains are really beating you from. they give a whole pictorial of the damage that these particular rains are having. And they say when it rains, wall collapses on vehicles after downpour. Some vehicles there damaged by walls, rather wall. Wow, quite sad. Even taking a look at some number plates there, these are new cars, by the way. Other stories on the Star, on the right strip there. Suspected murder, police arrest Naivasha couple after son, who's 5 years old, dies. And from that, MPs give dialogue team 30 more days to conclude talks. And Coast Hotels win big at 30th World Travel Awards in Dubai. At the top strip, matters in Mavoko, Portland says evictees was of their own making. Lobby vows to see you. That is on page 2. Those are the stories, well, among the stories on the Star this morning.
Let's have a look at the Business Daily. The headline there, tax cheats ditch mobile payment to beat KRA. Traders are asking customers now to pay cash as KRA deployed 1,400 revenue assistants to enhance compliance. And just in numbers there, the Kenya Revenue Authority has flagged a growing number of business owners ditching mobile merchant payment accounts and reverting to cash transactions since it enhanced compliance checks in major towns last month. And still on the Business Daily, Kenya Power flouted own roles in smart meters tender, and the procurement watchdog has thrown Kenya Power under the bus of acquisition of 5.3 billion shilling smart meters in a deal that has been blamed for delays in connecting hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses to the national grid. And on the very top strip of the Business Daily, accessibility to mobile services has accelerated Africa into the second fastest market for payment businesses. That piece there is on page 9 of the Business Daily this morning. And on the right strip, we have fuel levy collections dropped by nearly 1 billion shillings on higher taxes, and also EIB to audit GDC 428 million shillings funding use. And finally, Dubai-based luxury travel firm Mifta enters Kenya. The Dubai-based luxury travel services provider Mifta Concierge has launched operations in Kenya as a springboard for Africa expansion. That's what we have on the Business Daily this morning.
Time now for us to cross the border, and we head to Uganda. In Kampala this morning, the big headline on the Daily Monitor, Judge okays interest on loans from friends. This one is setting a precedent. In a landmark decision of the High Court in Gulu, a judge has ruled that individuals in Uganda can charge interest on money they lend to friends or relatives, even when they are not registered money lenders. The story is on page 4. Interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I was looking at it, I'm like, they should add family as well.
Yes, they've actually said.
Oh, they have?
They lend to friends or relatives.
Ah, great.
Even if they are not registered money lenders. It will prepare you.
This is a good move. That
your brother owes you some 1,000 shillings.
Yes.
Well, that's a big headline on the Daily Monitor this morning. The other story given prominence there has to do with the terror attack. ADF killed British, South African tourists and Ugandan guide. And this is a terror group, or rather a rebel group, that killed these 3 people inside one of the national parks in Uganda. And it shows a picture there of the vehicle the tourists were using when they met their death. At the very bottom strip of the front page of the Daily Monitor, very interesting strip there. New after-sex pill attracts mixed reactions. And elsewhere, government lawyer convicted, fined 7 million shillings for bribery. Another story there, activists petition IGG over corruption at Masaka Hospital. And one more highlight at the top strip, and this has to do with international news, what's happening in the Middle East. Hundreds killed as Israel airstrike hits hospital in Gaza City. That's the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning. In Uganda,
And in Tanzania, the Citizen, focusing on matters money and matters business. Exchange rate fluctuations cut national debt by $726 million. It goes on to say Tanzania's external debt was $725.8 million lower at the end of August 2023, as the US dollar remained strong against other foreign currencies and the debt portfolio, new BOT figures show. So more of this is on page 2. They quote a number of figures here, $28.61 billion. This is according to the central bank, says Tanzania's external debt stock at the end of August 2023 was that particular figure down marginally from $29.52 billion that was recorded at the end of July 2023, and 67.6, this is the US dollar linked to 67.7% of Tanzania's external debt, followed by the euro at 16% and the Chinese yuan at 5.6%, with other currencies completing the stock at 10.1%. The story is on the Citizen, why Tanzania opted for out-of-court settlement with Canadian company. And on page 3, you'll read that police arrest refugee man over incest claims. On the top strip, on the Citizen, Mwinyi's 3-year drive towards blue economy success. And finally, 500 participants to converge on Arusha for CSO Week 2023. That is on the front page of the Citizen.
Na tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania asubuhi ya leo. Na taarifa kuu pale ni chozi la waziri laibua CCM. Ni baada ya kulia hadharani akidai kuhujumiwa. CCM yasema haina taarifa za hujuma kama ni miradi inatekelezwa. Na vile vile katika gazeti la Mwananchi, mahakama yaibana polisi kwa kukaa na mtuhumiwa siku 18. Na katika masuala ya kitaifa, utakatifu wa Jerusalem ulivyo kikwazo cha amani. Na taarifa nyingine katika gazeti la Mwananchi, kunguni wavamia mabweni Yodom. Na taarifa nyingine pale, polisi wa mdaka anayedaiwa kuzaa na bintie. Na mwishowe, Samia, vifaa vya miradi visichelewe bandarini. Na hizo ndizo taarifa kuu katika gazeti la Mwananchi.
Interesting, kunguni wamevamia sehemu fulani kule Tanzania. You know, you remember when we were talking about the city of love, and the outbreak of bed bugs.
Yes.
And they're still struggling to fight it. So if it's gotten closer home,
looks like
don't be
there's like
shocked
a crisis.
if it actually comes to Nairobi.
Oh yes, or probably we have been having them, only that there's been no reporting on them.
Oh yes, uvamizi wa kunguni. Pengine tumezoea kuwa na kunguni mpaka tumesahau.
But in Kenya and mostly Nairobi, what is the whole big infestation is cockroaches. I've been seeing even Nairobi residents really saying there's a huge infestation of cockroaches and telling Sakaja, really do a thing here.
Yes,
so
we should handle the cockroaches. Yes. What about the wildlife that comes with the rain? Because I've seen quite...
Those edibles.
No, those are edibles.
The studio is actually filled today with the rain. Those are flying insects. What do you call them in your...
I've forgotten.
You call them Sichiri Swa, where I come from.
Ours is Nduya. They're very sweet, actually.
Yes.
What do we call them?
With a touch of
my director
salt.
says, but you see, you come from a different place from where I come from. So where I come from, we call them Sichiri Swa. Interesting.
It's definitely. As we even turn the pages to now the caricature,
yes,
they're quite interesting this particular morning, giving a whole satire feel for the kind of chaos and political drama happening here. You can start with the Daily Nation.
Okay, if we could start with the People Daily, I think Stano has done a great job today. And this matters football, and a cartoon there of the Stars sitting on Russia, and this is after the 2-2 draw. Well, I don't know, because it was a draw.
Yeah.
But Kenyans felt like it was a win. So the Stars are saying next, Germany, Brazil, England, and France in that order.
Yes. You know, before the break, and as they were taking a break, halftime, Kenya really felt like they had it in the bag. It was
Yes.
a 2-1, and they knew they really had to, maintain that particular pace. And the entire, after the 45 minutes plus extra time, to wrap it up, it was quite an intense.
Yeah.
And Olunga, and he was actually even trending on next. Some Kenyans really felt like he really gave us up and all that. So
well,
it was quite an intense game, that one.
Anything from a draw, because I think we're so used to losses, especially when it comes to football.
Oh yes, yeah.
And the fact that we beat Qatar the other day, and we drew with Russia. And the feeling of relief among Kenyan football fans is beginning to grow, and they're sounding a bit more optimistic. If you look at this cartoon and that expression that we can even face Germany, Brazil, and England, even France in that order. If you look at the FIFA rankings, this is actually these are the top the top countries: Argentina, then France, Brazil, England, Belgium, and Germany is somewhere there among. It dropped. It's no longer top 10, top 15. So yes, we're feeling simply because we drew with Russia that we can face even the big boys.
But the fact that it was the first ever European country we faced, so
yes, the optimism is real. Given the fact that we are going to be hosting AFCON in 2027, we should be somewhere. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another cartoon.
We look at the cartoon on the Standard.
Oh yes.
Daily Nation. Let's have a look at the one on the Daily Nation. And pictured here is the demolitions that are currently going on in Athi River. And they are a caricature of people seem to be probably our politicians. And what we have there in words is never waste a crisis. And I think this largely speaks to whenever anything anywhere happens, our politicians are the first people to run to sympathize with the people, but really it appears as if they have their own agendas.
They're shedding crocodile tears. You see, these are crocodiles.
Yes.
And it points to the fact that politicians are right at the center of this crisis.
Yes.
So they orchestrate a crisis. Then when it blows up, they come there and pretend to be crying and commiserating with those who've lost, the victims of the crisis. And it's a good indictment for our politicians.
Because yesterday we saw some of them actually crying literally when giving out their speeches. And I'm wondering, it's your county, you know this has been happening. This is a case that has been there for years. So it's something that should have been solved a little longer. But now when you come to the people crying, and it's the same people that expect you to give them solutions, I don't know how that helps.
Crocodile tears there.
But then I'd take a look at it in a different way. You remember during the whole AFCON for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, how the pigs were sitting in a bar and really looking forward to all that. And so for this ones, I'd say the crocodiles are taking a look at an opportunity beyond this chaos. They know, this particular crisis, as much as it is, for them it's an opportunity. They might be benefiting at the end of the day for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the Standard?
On the Standard this morning, a whole satire of matters politics. We have seen the script before. A gentleman there in a shirt that I'd say probably has some orange print on them, and that famous hat there saying, look, we can definitely do a handshake, and then I'll let you run in 2027. Another gentleman there with a long tongue and a chameleon tail.
Chameleon.
Yes. A lady behind that particular gentleman having a briefcase written Martha 2027. And she's coughing quite hard. Really speaks on the whole undertones that have been playing along in the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition on the 2027 race. Did Raila Odinga actually say that Wiper leader will be the presidential candidate, or did he not?
I'm sure the headline, I think, was it on Monday or Tuesday, must have caused quite some discomfort within the Azimio ranks.
Yes.
The fact that where the headlines were screaming that Raila has endorsed Kalonzo, and everyone else was like, what? How did that happen?
And they were
And then-
so quick to give a
yes.
response.
And then I also saw on the X page of now Mother Karua, having a photo of the Jubilee Secretary, embattled Secretary General there, Kioni, and another leader I'm forgetting. And really speaking on saying, these are the leaders, and we are coming for you, Ruto, in 2027. And well, really seems like the 2027 race has begun.
Yeah, that debate is definitely alive within Azimio. Who will be the next presidential candidate, At least for Kenya Kwanza and UDA, it is obvious. The president will seek a second term in office. So who will be the other candidate from the other big political formation? It's a big question, and we'll continue that conversation. Well,
and before you actually continue, speaking of big questions, this particular week, even as we continue to focus on matters of universal health coverage, remember our team is in Kaptatat Stadium in Kericho County, giving you a wall-to-wall kind of coverage. And this particular morning, yesterday we had a whole poll just to get to know if you really feel like the whole health infrastructure, where it is at. And today we ask you, do you have any special healthcare challenges in your area that you like, would like the government to address? Do you have any special healthcare challenges in your area that you would like the government to address? The hashtag is Afya Nyumbani and hashtag Morning Cafe. Hashtag Afya Nyumbani and hashtag Morning Cafe. Keep those particular comments coming in TV47 KE on Facebook and at TV47 News, that is on X, at Fred Indimoli, at Nyeringita _ and at Limuki _F on Twitter, or rather X. Fred?
Okay. We're just about to take a break. After this break, we'll be getting down to business, a state of the nation. On our panel this morning, Rebecca Wangui, governance and human rights advocate, the Honorable David Ole Sankok, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, and Wafula Kalista's political analyst. Do stand by for that conversation. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to get down to this discussion. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio the Honorable David Ole Sankok, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana. Vizuri kuwa na wewe leo. Next to Honorable Sankok, we have Rebecca Wangui, Governance and Human Rights Advocate. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And last but definitely not least, Wafula Kalista's political analyst. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Quite a number of things we can talk about, but of course the big headline has to do with what's happening in Mavoko in Athi River. This has been the biggest talking point from the weekend up until today. Last week, even the president spoke about it, and now we've seen the demolitions that continue to happen. A lot of other things have happened since then. Yesterday in the dailies, there was a notice by the East Africa Portland Cement Company announcing its intention to sell part of its land. It is not necessarily the same land where the demolitions are being carried out, but the organization is still selling land and demolishing houses on the other side. Yesterday we also saw the Azimio leadership try to access the area where the demolitions are happening. They were not able to. The other thing that has happened and is featuring on the dailies today, the DCI has summoned about 30 individuals, including a member of the National Assembly, Patrick Macau, the Mavoko MP, and land buying officials from land buying companies who are to be questioned with regards to the demolitions. Now, so much has been said about these demolitions, but the question I want to pose to you, we saw the president, when he was a deputy president and campaigning to be president, promising that such demolitions and treatment of Kenyans in this manner would not happen again. His deputy, back then he was a running mate, and he mentioned this, I think, on the day that the president was sworn in, so he was deputy president then, that the issue of demolitions and people being Kenyans being treated in such an inhumane manner will not happen. Do you think that this is another instance where the government or this new administration is going back on its word? Let's start with you, Kalistas.
Okay. First of all, may I take this opportunity to thank you for inviting us on this great show. What I want to say is that we saw what we call disregard of the law, because when the government enforce such a kind of measures to destroy people's properties in the name of they are enforcing court orders. A court order was issued, then it was enforced as if it was the people had reached or exhausted all the avenues of appeal. So what we are saying is that our members of parliament need to legislate on this matter, so that next time we should not have been discussing such a kind of issues. Because for me, I think if we could make it in our law that we cannot demolish like people's properties unless all avenues of appeals have been exhausted. But what happens, because I was told the court decision was made, then the following morning it was implemented, it was enforced. So that was the plan, and I want to take this opportunity to accuse the government, because the government of Kenya seems they are operating as if we don't have the constitution. We cannot say they did it in the right way, because those people were supposed to be given at least 14 days, either to file a bill or to give them just that time, so that the issue of enforcing court order immediately after it has been given, it doesn't make sense according to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, you're a human rights advocate. The court in its pronouncement talked more about the ownership of the land, who owns the land. The court did not give an order for eviction. Do you think that this was the right way to handle this, given that the president and his deputy had already given a promise to Kenyans that such issues, and they were clear that whenever there's a dispute, especially on ownership of land, that it would take the approach where a middle ground would be found.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fred, for having us this morning. This is definitely a very emotive matter in the sense that we are looking at people's savings, people losing their property, people losing their livelihood, rather. First of all, as a country, I want to say unequivocally that we are not lack of a legal framework that is supposed to guide how evictions are done. While you correctly put it, and as Callistus has mentioned, yes, there was a judgment, there was a ruling on the matter around the land belonging to the East Africa Portland. What I find intriguing, rather, is we first have to ask ourselves, because when you unravel this, there are particular layers of interest that are coming to the fore. Because the first question I've been trying to ask myself, why the quickening, why this swift? Because if any given thing, as you correctly put it, a court has pronounced itself on the matter. On this case, we are clearly seeing where the land, who actually owns the land. I am not privy to the details, but as you carry on, you can tell that there were so many sort of red flags around, the ownership of the land. Now, in the event, even in the event that those who are currently occupying the land may have not legitimately acquired the land, or they were owning a land that did not belong to the person who they were buying it from, let's say you're there and the court pronounces yourself as a person who's illegally in a place, there are measures. We do not have a concrete law right now that governs eviction, but we have it in the bill. At least we have Mheshimiwa here who can explain further on why, for instance, a matter like that of public interest cannot be accelerated and concluded. But we do have, our constitution is very clear. We have a very fundamental Bill of Rights. And when you talk of evictions, you're talking about right to housing. You're touching on the social and economic rights of the people. You're touching on the rights of the child. Because remember, here we have children. So the manner in which they did the eviction, number one, is suspect. Because let's say if as well that indeed evictions needed to happen, there is a notice that needs to be given to the occupiers, and you're told, okay, the court has pronounced itself on this matter. We need, as for instance, whoever owns the land, if it is a public land, for instance, then we're talking of National Land Commission coming into play in line with the Ministry of Lands and coming together, coordinating how that eviction was going to happen. Now, the question is, it is very obvious that the occupiers were never served with an eviction. And being served with an eviction also means being given adequate time for you to be able to have alternative means. Now, as Callistus has also put it, let's say a court has pronounced itself on a matter. We're not talking of a court like final exhaustion. People could have had the opportunity to appeal. So how does the government come in very quickly, okay, deploy security, deploy county officials, deploy government official quickly on a pronouncement, the next day go do an eviction? Clearly that is illegal.
Okay. And of course, for the government, the responsibility is greater, balancing between the rights of the common mwananchi and also the rights of property owners. In this case, you're talking about a community that had probably even 20,000 households who are, which are now being evicted. Where do you strike the balance as an administration?
My friend, first of all, I am a diplomat nowadays.
Yes.
I am a member of parliament in the East Africa Legislative Assembly. I represent all Kenyans, including Raila Odinga and Uhuru and William Ruto at the same, with the same kind of passion. So you have to treat me as a diplomat. What happened is like the government doing the same things, expecting different results. We did this in Mau Forest. We did this in the eviction of Kariobangi, in Ruai. And the results have always been the same. But the government seemed to be expecting different results. But to be plain, what happened is archaic, barbaric, it is retrogressive, it is unacceptable, it is unpalatable. It is bad because this is government land. Who is the government? it is you and me and those guys who have evicted from that land. Where is the person who pocketed money in selling that land? The government must also accept the responsibility that it did not perform its duties the way it is supposed to perform. Because we have all the agencies of the government. The Land Commission, for instance, safeguarding the land that belonged to the government. Where were they when this land was being subdivided? After being subdivided, being sold. After being sold, people erecting buildings. Some of them story building. I don't think you erect a story building inside your pocket. It is something that everybody can see. Even passersby can see. And if today you sell to me a piece of land in a place where there are story buildings, how do I doubt it? What is the reason for me to doubt? The government connected electricity. The same people. The government made roads. The same people. The government, whether county or national government, issue licenses for shops that were there. The government, whether county or whichever, or national, issued licenses for churches that were there, for schools that they were there. In fact, you may be shocked that some schools have government-paid teachers. You may be shocked that even chiefs were there, paid by the government. Police station may have been there, I don't know, paid by the states. So the state must accept that, first of all, apart from the land grabbers, the government also failed. And it is not the responsibility of those people to pay for government failures or for those who have grabbed land. Because what are they doing now? They are grabbing again now, maybe Portland cement in another place, or grabbing any other government land and selling to unsuspecting Kenyans. After selling to the unsuspecting Kenyans, then the government will punish the unsuspecting Kenyans, and those land grabbers go scot-free. Okay. How will they pay?
And yes, the responsibility or the duty of care, the greater duty of care, definitely should lie with the government. As Mheshimiwa Sankok says, it appears the government has failed in ensuring hygiene and sanity in the property market, in the sale of land, because its own officials, to a huge extent, are involved in malpractices that end up in such demolitions. Definitely the government's role cannot just be to come and demolish. They should have been at the forefront in ensuring that no illegal land dealings happen in the first place, don't you think?
May I just say that the issue of land grabbing in Kenya is as a result of having public land which is idle. We have so many lands in Kenya which is owned by the government and idle. The question I have to ask is that when we have investors who may want to come to Kenya to invest, and such a kind of land should be useful to them, because the government need to donate that land if it is idle to investors. Why are we keeping our land idle to an extent of inviting grabbers to come and grab land and sell to innocent Kenyans? Because the demolition that has been done to those people, I believe they are not the main grabbers. There's somebody who grabbed the land, then he sold it to Kenyans. So I'm talking from a point of a Kenyan who may want to see this country progressive in terms of development. Okay. I want to urge the government to give all the idle lands to investors. They may give it free or just make it any person who want to come and invest in Kenya, either to put a factory or an industry, you need to be given that land. India did the same. It is now one of the developed countries. It happened in Britain. Britain is one of the developed countries. So we need to know why should we be having idle land when investors are looking for that opportunity to come and invest.
Okay. And Rebecca, something has to be said about also the role of those people who ended up investing in that land. Of course, there's this word that keeps being thrown around. You need to do due diligence, and you need to ensure this or the other, ensure you use the right procedures to buy land. So the question is, when something like this happens, and from a human rights perspective, people have lost their livelihoods, people have lost homes that they spent years building for their families. Is there any route for reparations for such people? Is there any route that these people can actually gain something back?
Thank you once again. I think, first of all, before I respond to that question, when you look at what is happening right now, and as Mheshimiwa has pointed it out, this land is not private land. This land is not community land that always has peculiarity around who owns it because it's owned by community. We are talking of a land owned by government, public land. We are talking of a land that is currently under the squarely hands and the mandate of National Land Commission. So by the time the land buying company got hold of it, and they know very well that from the land registry records that land belongs to is it Kenya Air, an authority, it's a parastatal, right? By the time they saw that, you can see this is a clear example of the blatant corruption that we have in this country. So what we are discussing here is a rather replica or a consequence of the bigger picture. This for me is a scandal of a few people who have gone into the system as usual and cahooted to be able to quickly get money from unsuspecting land buyers. Now, to come to your question, number one of the biggest challenges we have, and I'll speak this from an aspect of somebody who's trying to conduct due diligence for a potential land buyer, and also from a buyer, me and you, a normal citizen. The biggest challenge we have right now is that our procedures, our land registry, again, stemming back to the corruption, there are two aspects. When you go to the land registry, we have two forms of files when you're doing due diligence. You have the correspondence file that talks about the day-to-day activities, what it is that this particular parcel of land that I'm interested in buying, that I'm interested in leasing, who has it, what are the usual terms and conditions of that particular land, who owns it. And there's also the aspect of the historical file. Now, many people don't go ahead to peruse the historical file to see how this land has changed hands. So then you find that the intrigues lie therein. And sometimes when the land, again, is of public interest, there's a land buying company that wants to make quick buck out of the unsuspecting buyers, because who doesn't want to own land? Who doesn't want to lease a particular parcel of land for whatever reason? It's about livelihood here we are talking about. It's about people realizing that I have to secure a parcel of land. So what these land buying companies, they take advantage of the fact that they quickly come, advertise something, and you as a buyer, you're seeing it as a very good deal. Okay. In fact, most of them, if you hear some of those people who have suffered from the eviction, they're talking of a saving, and they realize that they could actually buy the piece of land and erect a building of their dreams. Now, coming back to this due diligence, the historical aspect of it, there is a lot of tampering at the land registry. So, for instance, if we know there are issues that are irregular to this particular parcel of land, there is a tendency for that documentation to be shelved. So you who's coming to check, I've searched my piece of land, I see it as a clean land, therefore clean title, okay? But the intrigues therein, because they are inside, papers are pulled out, they are taken back. So these land buying companies are in cahoots also with our very own people who are supposed to be doing their work with our taxpayers' money. We are talking of the staff members in that land industry. So they collaborate with these people. So you have done my due diligence. So how do you tell this person who has already come and said, no, I actually did, I instructed my lawyer, we knew this is a clean place of land, and therefore a clean land, and therefore clean title. Now, for this particular matter, those people who've been evicted, I believe, because let's say with all, all that we are now discovering, that most of them, they were unsuspecting, they bought the land, they followed the procedure. Of course, like we clearly put it from the beginning, why was the rush? Where was the rush? You see, there's a hidden agenda. Where was the rush to come and do the evictions? Because ordinarily, if a court pronounces itself on a matter, I, the person who's been affected, I can always appeal the matter. So they have the recourse, of course. There are reliefs, for instance. They can talk about, for instance, if clearly those are unlawful evictions, how else do they get their compensation back? Because this land buying company, we are seeing DCI going after it, so what? No, we're not interested in them going after and doing their investigations. People would want, if they purchase the piece of land, they return the money back, and they're able to go buy land elsewhere, especially those who can be able to prove. So there are reliefs there are reliefs. There are all manner of reparation that these evictees can actually be.
Hold that thought, and we'll come back to wrap up with that discussion so that we move to other things. It's time now for a break. Remember, you're watching Morning Cafe on TV47, and you can continue interacting with us on our social media pages at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook. You're watching Morning Cafe. Don't go too far. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indumuli. I'm still in studio with Wafula Kalistas, political analyst, Rebecca Wangui, governance and human rights advocate, and the Honorable David Ole Sankok, member, East Africa Legislative Assembly. We now want to wrap up this discussion about the Mavoko demolitions. And just before the break, Rebecca took us through the possible routes for reparations. But a lot needs to be said about the government's approach to this. And could this be a signal of things to come, especially on matters to do with land ownership and occupation? We see that the government is working on a privatization of government parastatals, and we do understand that land is the biggest assets that these parastatals are holding.
Fred, I think we should be fair to the government. The government is all of us. It's not necessarily President William Ruto, it's not the opposition leader Raila Odinga was there, and I'm sorry he was there empty-handed as usual to get political mileage. He did not go there with even a packet of sweets for the children who are loitering after their houses were demolished. We should not take political mileage on such emotive issues. We should be true to ourselves, because we should ask ourselves, why were the government agencies very quick and very swift and prompt and active in demolishing these houses, but the opposite is displayed while they were guarding the same land from land grabbers? And Fred, you may allow me to give you a situation in Mau Forest, because I come from that region. In Mau Forest, land was grabbed. Title deed were issued to very poor hustlers, 2 acres, 3 acres. Some of them disposed their land probably in Lot and other places. And then they bought that fertile land. The title deeds were there. Government built schools, constructed roads. There were chiefs. Students went from class 1 to class 8, some of them to Form 4, wearing uniforms. Forest officers were there. I don't know, they mistook maybe the children in uniform as if they are monkeys or whatever. They were not able to guard that forest. Then all of a sudden, we were told those title deeds are papers and that those must be evacuated in a very inhumane manner. But you know, there was also Gideon Moi owning Kiptagich Tea Factory inside Mau Forest, 3,000 acres. But because, of course, he's who in this society, his title deed was not paper. But for the hustlers, their title deeds were papers. How, Fred, if somebody is selling you land, you go and do whatever they call due diligence. You go to the land registry office in Narok, check for the title deed, what we call search. You are told that the title deed is there. You buy. Lawyers do the agreements. Title deed transferred to you. And of course, inside that land is not a forest. You are seeing schools, you are seeing chief camps, you are seeing teachers paid by the government. You will not have prophetic eyes to know that this land was grabbed. The same thing have happened here. And I think, and I also have said, the government is doing the same thing, expecting different results. All the lands in this country belong to the government. That is why the title deed you have is actually a lease, either of 99 years, 900 and whatever years, but it is a lease. It's an allotment. The government have allotted to you. So now that these people have incurred a lot of expenses, and it is the government failure that it is not safeguard their own land, and they are still leasing land, they are still donating land, they are still giving out land, why were they not able to donate land to these people?
Okay.
What is the repercussion to the economy? You see how many houses were demolished. How much in that to our economy? These people were paying taxes. These people pay taxes for the paints that those houses were painted with. Those people paid taxes for the metals that they use, the iron sheet that they use. Those people who were working there, the engineers, the architects, the plumbers, the electrician, were paying pay as you eat or pay as you earn. Now tell me, how much have we lost as a government?
Let me just allow me to step in a little bit. You see, one of the biggest challenges we have as a country is when a matter of this nature, of national importance, public interest comes to the fore, we lump the mandate as government. You see, there's what Muheshimiwa is saying, government is me and you. No, I beg to respectfully differ from that, because we have surrendered our mandate to our member of parliament, to the office of the president, the CEO of the country. Now, every single time we're talking about right to housing, I would imagine this is something at the priority of the office of the president. This is eviction. I clearly put it that evictions can happen on three types of land: private land, community land, or public land. With private land, you'll find all manner of even hooliganism coming in, because now this is an individual versus an individual, or a corporation versus a corporation. Now, this eviction is not a matter between me and Callistas. This is an eviction purportedly on public land. What does that mean? It means this government we're talking about, it has mandated agencies. Now, I mentioned the National Land Commission. So the evictions to have happened, National Land Commission ought to have known that. The parastatal that is actually having the title and having the right to be there ought to have been involved, okay? The Ministry of Lands to some degree ought to have been involved, security to come and oversee. And you know, when we're talking of eviction, like I said, there are particular guidelines that must be followed. Beyond a notice, when they're doing the eviction, the notice is given, you're illegally occupied a parcel of land, you knew very well, you knew or you didn't know, probably at that point in time, may not necessarily matter, may not be an argument that the person who's evicting you want to hear because a court has pronounced itself on the matter. But what are we seeing? Right in front of me, you can see even a water tank. So what we're talking about here is state agencies. I'm sorry to say, even at the top, our CEO watching this, he's been the propeller, the #1 promoter of talking about the right to housing. On one hand, you cannot give, and another hand, you take away.
Excuse Fred.
I'm sorry, I gave you, you've been given a moment to allow me to speak. So now, for me, like we are clearly putting it, this is a matter of intrigue. It's not that every single morning they know what the government is all about. So I'm putting and I'm submitting that this is not an eviction that Rebecca came in the morning and said, no, Callistas, you need to leave. No, the government was well aware. So what they needed to do is do, as much as we are saying, for instance, that the occupiers there may have known or may have been unsuspecting, and the land buying companies knew what they were doing to dupe. The government needed not to make another wrong. They needed not to make another wrong by forcefully and inhumanely evicting Kenyans. They needed to do it the right way.
Yes, you know, we cannot blame one office in a government. And I think we should all be aware that we have independent institutions, according to our constitution, who are supposed to do their work independently. The police service is an independent institution. We have very independent commissions, like the National Land Commission. They are supposed to be independent from state capture, because we have always been talking about state capture. Again, you want the president to capture all the institutions, including the police service, to direct them and redirect them, and to surely it is independent institution. But this issue is so emotive. In fact, Fred, when I see this demolition, you know, I've worked for my money, and I've also constructed a few buildings. And if I see a building like this coming down, there's a certain feeling around my stomach that I feel that is not very good. But lastly, remember, the land grabbers are free. They are loose. They are out there. They are now on NYS land. They may be now grabbing another forest land. They may be grabbing another school land, because they know they will sell, pocket the money, buy justice when the DCI call them, as the people they have sold the land suffer. That is why I'm saying, when more forest people were being evicted, I came out very clearly. Let us first of all get the agreements. Who sold this land? Okay. If it is a leader and he have a parcel of land, we remove those people from that land and take them to the land of that leader first, settle them there as we continue with another process. Okay. So that we punish, unless we punish the land grabbers heavily, I think we are doing...
I have one more question for you, Honorable Sankok, because you appear to be defending certain offices in government.
I'm not defending.
And the Deputy President was in Nyandarua last week.
Yes.
Around the same time, I think on Thursday. And there had been some eviction of people from a land, I think in Olkalau. And he was very vocal about it, and he said, this will not happen again. And then a day later, this started. He's been curiously quiet on this matter. Why do you think that is?
My friend, he protected those ones by just saying it the way we are saying. Now, Jubilee, you have said this one is bad. Are you directing them? Are you micromanaging them? Do you have power over them? The president, the deputy president cannot micromanage independent institutions, because the constitution does not give them the mandate. Okay. It will only ask them, because do you think William Ruto will use the hammer to demolish these houses? Okay. No, it is the independent police service that were used by the National Land Commission and Portland Cement. So we should be actually directing our energies to them and warning them. And that's the way the president can warn them.
Let's take them to task also, these commissions and organizations that should have been held to account, even as we wrap up this conversation. The then governor of Machakos County, Dr. Alfred Mutua, back in 2015, wrote a letter to the ESCC raising this issue, concern about the fact that he saw that there could be some people duped into buying this land that was not available for sale. And he called upon the ESCC, even gave a list of those individuals to be investigated or to be asked questions with regard to this matter. The fact that this happened means that the ESCC did not take action. What do you say about the ESCC for one, and these other commissions, including the NLC, and the DCI that has now jumped into action and is now going to interrogate 30 people? After the fact.
ESCC is just a toothless body. If you ask me, do we have independent institution in Kenya? We don't have. Judiciary was seemingly looked like it is an independent institution, but when you look at how they are now transacting or they are operating, they are just held they are just in custody of executive. So what I may tell you is that for us, like me from Linda Chami, I'm the Secretary General of Linda Chami, we are filing a petition to force the government to compensate the people because we believe the demolition was enforced and the people were not given that chance of them appealing to the higher court.
So the intention is to get
we are going to force the government to compensate the victims. Number two, when we say, I want to disagree with the Mheshimiwa saying that government, you cannot accuse the government. The government is William Ruto. Maybe we can say William Ruto and Kachakwa.
No.
Because they appear as if they are controlling everything. Whatever William Ruto wanted to do, it has been done. If he wanted to raise fuel, the fuel is now up. If he wanted to do whatever he wanted, including sending someone to jail, he need to have done it. So there's nothing that we can say the head of state is not in control. In fact, the resources that were used to demolish houses in Athi River, it was given by William Ruto. For me, I believe 100% that William Ruto should be held accountable. We cannot be operating as if this country is ruled by everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, the country is ruled by William Ruto and Kachakwa.
Okay.
And we want to say that we had that intention of having independent institution, but we don't have. The judiciary is not given that independence, which is in the constitution, and the people must raise up because we have given enough time to members of parliament.
I think wrong.
My friend here is a member of parliament.
Just now to respond.
And
wrong information.
we have kept them that chance of manipulation because members of parliament are supposed to act on our behalf, not on their behalf. Okay. But it appears as if we don't have parliament in Kenya, and that the parliament that we have is just used by executive to sanitize corruption and everything.
Okay.
Fred,
as you respond to that, the president was actually in Mavoko on Friday, just before these evictions, and he spoke about what the court had pronounced itself on, and he said he's happy. He loaded the court decision and gave a go-ahead on the plans that were to follow.
Why did he have to upload a court decision if it was his own decision? Anyway, let us be truthful. And accusation and false accusation does not take us to anywhere. If you say that the parliament is being manipulated, you elected the members of parliament. William Ruto did not elect for you the member of parliament. If he's being manipulated, is that the problem of William Ruto? Or it is the member of parliament? Because we have three arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and legislative. And all of them have their own budget. They have their own heads. The president of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of the National Assembly is supposed to be, and actually is, very independent. They make their own laws. They can summon. They have high court powers. They can even summon those land grabbers and pass judgment upon them, if you are aware. The Land Commission, the National Land Commission, is independent. EACC is an independent institution. What we should be saying now is that in 2015, Alfred Mtua, you have put it, raised this alarm. Portland Cement went to court. They stopped any further development from that land. And then, I think around 2018 or something, 2016, the courts lift that ban. William Ruto was not there. He was not the president. If you are blaming him, lift that ban. Allowed construction to go on. So, instead of blaming the judiciary, which is very, very independent, they nullified the presidential election. And they did, as an independent institution. And now you are saying, because you want to blame William Ruto, you now say judiciary is not independent. But when it nullified the election in 2017, you say, okay, judiciary is independent. If William Ruto will have told the courts not to lift this ban, you will have said that is macro-managing. He only uploaded that this land actually belonged to Portland Cement, and actually rightfully belonged to Portland Cement. So even you and I today, we are not denying that this land belonged to Portland Cement. We are saying institutions of the government that were supposed to safeguard this land were not proactive enough to protect the land. So the government in entirety should have accepted that there was loopholes that allowed these people to construct and invest billions. Now, instead of destroying the economy by destroying the billions, since government land belongs to the people, you can lease that land to the people, you can allocate that land to the people, we can still say Portland Cement safely, let us allocate to those people who have constructed it. But we will not blame an individual, because the individual is not the government.
Finally, wrap up this conversation.
Okay, quick points. I beg to differ again, because as much as we know that we have people and institutions in this country that are supposed to be independent, independence right now for me is elusive. It's a fallacy. Why? Because even the members of parliament that Mheshimiwa is talking about here, while some of them do understand their mandate in terms of legislating, in terms of representing the issues of their constituency, we know very well over the years what governments have continued to do.
But we should not elect them.
So what happens is, we elect them with the agenda, with the manifesto, and with what they present, only for them to go to parliament and literally and openly disregard what their mandate is supposed to do and collectively carry on an agenda that is government propelled. And when you talk about government, you're talking about the CEO of the country. So let us not be, the saddest part and the biggest strategy we have in this country is deception. You see, it is important. If I'm a member of parliament and I know very well that I am propelling a particular agenda and it comes through, why would I say that? If our president, right, he pronounced himself and correctly put it that, okay, this judgment has actually gone in accordance with the way it was supposed to do, the same CEO of our country ought to have seen, because I can imagine, let's say, I'm giving an example, if he's currently in the country right now and he saw that, as a CEO of the country, what was he supposed to do? And quickly say, you know what, as much as, yes, the court has pronounced itself, this is not the way to go. I am the president of this country. I cannot oversee such an inhumane and undignified eviction of people. So you cannot sit here and start to say that, oh, this one is supposed to do this. No. There's something we call oversight. There's something we call the overall. Who has the overall mandate? And that clearly, if he pronounced himself last week, he also could have pronounced himself to see what just happened right here. Let me mention on the DCI, another intrigue. I have to ask myself, because this is a land buying company that, this is a phenomenon that is going across the country. The question I have to ask myself, why is DCI coming at the tail end when the matter is in the public eye? Okay? Were the evictions supposed to precipitate DCI work? Because already for me, this is foreplay. if you ask me, because they're talking about going after police bosses, MPs that probably are in cahoots in this land buying company. The question then I have to ask myself, if at that particular point, the former governor had pointed the matter and raised it to the EACC, you cannot then tell me at that particular time, DCI were not aware and that they do not have this file open in their offices to know that this thing was a matter ongoing, meaning a going concern. So for them to come at the tail end after evictions and there's a public outcry, for me, that's foreplay. For me, there's no investigations that are going to happen here. This is a pure class of corruption. It is a pure class of interest that we're talking about, the hidden interest here. And like you clearly put it, it's even very sad. The facts and the evidence are right in front of us. How could the very same person, East Africa, Portland, now talk right after they have overseen humane evictions, talk about now we are going to partition part of the land to be sold. I would have imagined before these evictions, they needed to have said, we need to demolish this part and all that, and sit down with the people, because one of the procedures under eviction is consultation with the people affected, the evictees and the one who's evicting. So I would have imagined what East African Portland is suggesting about being able to purchase, release some of its land and purchase and sell it off to the public, or to have come way before these evictions are happening. So clearly, let us not sit here and lie to ourselves. I mean, everybody have a right, and we need to be able to accord ourselves. At the very bare minimum, I think we need to be, if you're a member of parliament, if you're a CS, a cabinet secretary, if you're whoever you are, you ought to at least give yourself that self-respect to understand your mandate before your competing interest is overrides the public interest.
Just give me a second.
Okay.
Maybe probably, sometimes you become so much of an activist that you forget the Constitution. And I want to educate them a bit. Members of parliament are elected from the general public. And the general public have its own fair share of robbers, criminals, and so on. So just even in parliament, they may not be all saint. And the Constitution have given them a loophole to be able to recall them. Whenever you realize that your member of parliament is being manipulated, or your member of parliament is not doing his own mandate as prescribed by the law. I have never seen any of them being recalled. Again, as you point to the member of parliament, remember 5 fingers are pointing to you.
Okay.
Votes are being bought during election.
Representing us.
So if you sell your vote, and then again you are pointing to the same member of parliament, let us really be genuine to ourselves.
Okay.
The president, if today he said, stop that demolition, we will accuse him of micromanaging independent institutions like the police service, the DCI, EACC, is directing them. He cannot direct them.
Okay. Very emotive, a very difficult conversation to have with regard to what is happening at Mavoko in Athi River with the ongoing demolitions, because they are continuing even as we speak. I want us to move and discuss other issues because of time. Quite a number of things are happening in the country as well. In Meru, for example, the second impeachment motion against Governor Mwangaza was tabled yesterday, and the MCAs listed in that motion 7 allegations against the governor. And this new impeachment comes barely a year after the Senate saved her from being removed from office. I want us to focus on this briefly before we move to the National Dialogue Committee, because even then, they've received a 30-day extension of their mandate. On this issue, we've seen counties that have been unable to work, probably because this is 10 years since the advent of devolution. And this issue of governors being unable to work with their deputies, governors having unending squabbles with the members of the county assembly. And we've seen how they've affected the performance of county governments and the county development to a huge extent. Makueni, I think, under Kivutha Kibwana was probably one of the extreme in the first term, and you see within the very first 5 years of devolution. And it's brought that situation to almost a crisis. Do you think that Meru is headed in the same way, that probably this issue should go to the president, that the governor should now say probably we should declare a crisis and seek to dissolve this county?
You know, the devolution in Kenya, since we promulgated the 2010 constitution, devolution was supposed to speed up the rate of development in the country. But it seems it has increased politics in the country, because when you see a governor having issues with the MCAs, then know that that governor is working. You have just given us an example of Makueni. Kivuta Kipwana was the best governor. He tried to do some things which he was supposed to do. But I just want to say that we need to either legislate or just try to amend the constitution so that we keep this devolution what we call, we want to give them parameters on which there are things that they are supposed to be handling. It seems like when we send money to counties, there is no follow-up, and even the Auditor General has no capacity to give the people real-time reporting on the performance of the governors in all the 47 counties. We have ineffective Auditor General, we have got ineffective devolution, and we have ineffective MCAs who are just chasing governors who are working. Mwangasa, to me, is the best governor we have, because Mwangasa has not done anything that we can say is illegal. There's nothing that these people are accusing her for not implementing or failing on to discharge her mandate as the governor of Meru. So I want to say that devolution in Kenya need to be looked at, and that the people, because we have given our MPs, like Mheshimiwa is here, have given them that mandate of acting on our behalf, but it seems they are not ready to serve the people. Okay. So we are saying, as the people, we need to start this conversation. We need to see, to use all avenues, including amending the Constitution of Kenya, so that we make devolution effective. Okay. We cannot be having governors, they are just there, you serve for like 10 years. Now we have got 10 years down the line. We don't have anything that we can say this is owned by this county. Okay. It was created by this county and it's owned by this county. We don't have even one company. We can say this company was created by Governor X or Governor Z. Okay. So we are having a dysfunctional devolution, but we want to pretend as if we're having something. Look at the devolution in India. It's working. Okay. When you look at devolution in the United States, it's working. Okay. But our devolution is just a fallacy.
Let me go through the list of allegations that have been leveled against the governor. They include charges of nepotism, usurpation of roles belonging to the Meru County Public Service Board, contempt of the assembly, inciting residents against other leaders, and making insulting remarks against them. Other accusations include gross violation of the Constitution of the County Government Act in relation to public resource management, fraudulent inclusion of relatives on a foreign trip, misrepresenting them as a technical team for purposes of traveling to China to inspect and certify cancer treatment equipment, accusations of bullying, vilifying and demeaning other leaders, including her deputy. There's also an accusation of naming a road somewhere, I think.
You can see.
The system that was set up for devolution was meant to have checks and balances, but it would appear that probably we still haven't gotten it right, that this system of checks and balances could actually end up having the governor under the control of the county assembly completely.
Okay, thank you very much. Like Callistus has said, devolution indeed was meant to bring the government closer to people, the services, to the citizens. So it's a noble idea. And if you look at it, how it's been spelled in our constitution, really, you can tell what were the aspiration of devolution and what it is actually meant to achieve. However, I think we forget that what we see at the county level is just a reflection of our national, of our society. So what we have cascaded is what we are currently experiencing at the county level is what ails us at the national level. So we have, we have governors, we have members of county assembly. The same issues that they are grappling with at that particular level is the same thing at the national level. For me, what I find is, whereas we elect representative, qualified people, people who have, good ideas for their people, one of the things that we really lack, because when you look at all those issues, they're not necessarily matters of competence, they're matters of moral standing, they're matters of ethos, they're matters of value systems, value principles. Because if you're talking about nepotism, I would imagine, why would for instance, I'm not saying that's there remain allegations, and also I must say that I'm not privy to the matter. But then, if for instance you're a governor, why would you go ahead in your own right senses be able to give people of your family members work? Why would you employ your own relatives? Whereas they're supposed to be particular, competing procedures and all that, the frameworks and all. But also one thing I'll mention is that at the devolution level, county levels, whereas we've tried very well at the national level, different counties are at different stages. So when it comes to the laws, it comes to the framework, it comes to basically how they execute their mandate. So with also those loopholes, of course, some governors, some MCAs may take advantage of the lack of a framework, for instance, the lack of an administrative framework. Maybe, do we know how governors are supposed, county governors are supposed to recruit? So those particular operational administrative framework, if they're not there, then of course the societal kick-in will be like, let's take advantage of these lacunas. And also I must also say, like members of county assembly, you see, it still stems back to, while they're able to execute the work, what is the motivation behind trying to, for instance, take out a governor? What is the motivation behind it? Is it because you're not getting what you needed to have gotten, or maybe she's very tough and she's not able to give them, the opportunity as we clearly see? Is it that because they're not having those opportunities to, enrich themselves, and so they decide to witch hunt on their boss? So this is a phenomenon we've been seeing in different particular counties, and therefore, for me, it will go beyond the frameworks. It will go beyond the legal and administrative frameworks at the county level. We will have to have this national discussion. And I hope the dialogue committee takes it as a matter of national importance, because what counties are doing in MCAs is just a reflection of the society.
The second impeachment motion in a matter of months, shouldn't we say that this is a signal for a failed county government, that you cannot have two impeachment motions within 1 year?
Fred, I feel like laughing. On the other hand, you're saying Parliament, National Assembly is not working because it's not impeaching the president, or is not doing whatever that it's supposed to do.
Possible impeachment,
and then now, because the county assembly is kind of impeaching the governor because of whatever she have done, you are now saying this county government again have become excessive. So what do you really need for the county assembly and the National Assembly? That is my first question. My second question is that, today the president is in China, accompanied by the First Lady. Nobody is talking of the president taking part of his family to China. We have a place for first ladies in our counties. But what is a place for the first gentleman? The enemies of the 2/3 gender rule of the women are the women themselves. They have a lot of jealousy about it. If you hear those who are talking ill about, I'm not defending her. I don't even know what she has been doing. But sometimes when you mention things like maybe her husband participating in such issues, we have first ladies having even a kitty in counties, having a kitty in the national. having Mama Lucy Hospital. It was named after the First Lady. You know, so a road being named after the First Gentleman. All women are up in arms. Anyway, what I know is that devolution have worked to us, especially to us in Narok. Today, Fred, I invite you to come to Narok. We have a very big function where the governor, Patrick Olendutu, went to the people before he started his term, did public participation, what is the priority in different areas, in fact, to the units, to polling stations, not only wards, what are your priority? We have this amount of money for development. So each ward was told, we have 100 million for each ward. What are your priorities? Some wards require roads, some require water, some require dams for irrigation, those that are agricultural in nature, the pastoralists in nature may require boreholes for their animals. So today we have a function where the governor will come and say, this is what we promised, have we delivered? Yes, we promised to build, for instance, I can give you just a small snapshot, that Patrick Olendutu have so far, in 1 year, constructed almost 400 CBC classrooms.
Okay.
In 10 years, it will be 4,000. The classroom will be more than the people's. He have constructed around 210 health centers.
Okay.
In 10 years, we will have in Narok around 2,100 health centers.
That's a situation where the governor has been allowed to function. And my question was, because when we have a county assembly consistently attempting to impeach the governor, then we foresee a situation where the governor is not able to perform her duty. There's a clause within the Constitution that allows when there's constant, I forget the correct word there, but when there's a stalemate of this nature and it consistently persists, then that county can be declared no longer viable. Do you think that this situation has gotten to that?
Fred Ndumili, is it about how many times, how consistent they are in trying to impeach the governor, or what is the ground for impeachment of the governor? You know, I think we should be discussing more about the grounds. And for me, the grounds that you have read, one of them is probably going with his family, naming the road after her husband, which I have even given you a live example of the late President Kibaki, the First Lady, having a whole hospital named after her, Mama Lucy Hospital. Surely, is that a crime? Is it a crime? Or what is the process of naming? We should ask ourselves, is the process as per our constitution, which I don't know if it is there, followed for that road to be named after somebody? Because we have so many roads that have been mentioned after some characters, we don't know what they did. I had another one that was being mentioned after Atwoli. Did you impeach Atwoli from the court?
Some of the big differences between county assemblies and the governors has been the issue of money. That many MCAs in different counties would want some amounts set aside specifically for each county, for each ward, which is not provided for in the Constitution. Some counties, for example, in Uasin Gishu, already has its own sort of ward development fund, which is not provided for. And this was one of those issues that in Meru, the county assembly and the governor disagreed on. It is also part of to some level of the discussions we're having the National Dialogue Committee on the entrenchment of the CDF, which is also not in the Constitution, the Senate fund as well, oversight fund. It's always about the money. It is not provided for in the law.
Yes.
Should we now be talking about how to entrench such funds in the Constitution to resolve some of this crisis?
We are not supposed to, because for me, I believe members of parliament, MCS, are not supposed to handle any money. And we need to make that in the law. If there is anything we need to discuss about putting in the constitution, is stopping a member of parliament or MCA access to money. They are supposed to defend the people. They are supposed to defend corruption. They cannot be managing any resource. That is something that we need to make it clear. The reason why I'm disagreeing with the MCS, Meru MCS, is that they wanted to impeach that governor before she could start even, she wasn't in the office yet, but they were planning already to impeach her. So I cannot trust their move to impeach her for the second time. So we are saying we need to stop these issues of people just starting impeachment. They are using airtime to discuss nonsense, because you want to impeach somebody and yet you know this somebody has not committed any crime. So what it will end up going to court, then services in Meru County will stall. So the move by Meru MCAs need to be, the people need to raise up against them, because they cannot be allowed to micromanage or to manipulate the leadership in Meru. So another thing, we are discussing about the task force, bipartisan task force. For me, that thing is illegal, and we learned from the PPI. PPI was just something close to this bipartisan talk, but PPI was more civilized. This one, it looked like it is just a talk between William Ruto and Raila Odinga, and the court pronounced on that matter. Okay. So the Supreme Court, indeed. Yeah. So we need to. I want to say that building bipartisan talk is a waste of time. They are a waste of resources. They are wasting time discussing things. They have no mandate in our constitution to start any discussion about anything. Okay. They cannot form something that they call a bipartisan talk. Then they start discussing things as if they want to now overturn the constitution. That right is limited. It's only given to Kenyans. Okay. And maybe members of parliament may exercise that right just on our behalf. Okay. But they have not that power. And building a bipartisan talk is just like PPI, okay, which wasted a lot of public resources. And we need to say that we have to stop them. They are using our resources to do nonsensical things.
Even before we get to the National Dialogue Committee, on this issue with the devolution, we've seen that there has been that push for county assembly, members of the county assembly to be able to control some funds at the ward level. And that was initially even the problem with what was happening with Kibudha Kibwana back then in Makueni. This has been, and it has forced governors in so many counties to actually allocate funds for each county. Probably a majority of and they've enjoyed some relative peace after that. Don't you think that probably as a way of ensuring stability of county governments and a sustaining devolution, that probably that's a conversation we should be having? Give the MCAs a fund that they can control at the county level, and then allow the governor to work.
Yeah, I think for me it is a very timely discussion we need to have as a country, because one of the things that I see here is, for instance, if somebody is elected as a member of county assembly, I'm sorry to say, but it looks like there is a comparison between an MCA and a member of parliament, because a member of parliament back then could be able to control a kitty. And one of the biggest challenges we also have as citizenry is to expect some of these particular positions to be able to offer services that equate to some level of allocation of resources. So if I come on board and I'm elected as a member of parliament, and we know very, very well what the role of the member of parliament is to legislate, represent the matters of the and offer oversight overall, we still expect when this member of parliament goes back to his or her backyard, that there will be some level of, a budgetary allocation that he or she can be able to access for the betterment and the services of the citizens in the constituency. Now, here comes a member of county assembly as well. Again, maybe I'll also have to ask ourselves, what did we envision the member of county assembly to do? Because once we understand what the role of the member of county assembly is, while we know what the role is, then does that role then equate a budgetary allocation? Those are key questions we need to ask ourselves, because I think the issue comes in when now they have to look at themselves at the county level and wonder why they're not equally, quote unquote, treated as a member of parliament. And therefore then the motivation that you alluded to comes in, the money aspect. So if I am a governor and perhaps I'm also not giving that leeway, so there's not kitty that I am, forward thinking around, let us set aside this particular kitty that can help people at the ward level, then of course, will there be a political goodwill of that particular governor? Absolutely not. So you'll find in this case, for instance, the question then we have to ask, for instance, for the Meru governor, if already she was being fought even before she was inaugurated to that particular position, is she garnering political goodwill? Because when we are doing elections, you realize that we are very keen on looking at the national level. It still hasn't hit us that actually you will not be really bothered with the CEO of the country, which is the president, but more so on a day-to-day, it's your governor you'll be dealing with, it's your MCA you'll be dealing with. So I also think this is also a call to governors, because governors are administrators, they're also the CEOs of the counties. How do you ensure that you have the skills of team leadership to bring your people on board? Because when you see now that impeachment call, it then looks like there's also a gap. There's also a gap on the side of a governor. How does he or she rally? Now, this is not to Meru, but how does a governor rally his or her team to be able to have this common understanding of how they need to run the matters of the county? So I think also that is lacking on how to bring people on board. And of course, in liaison to the political goodwill. But for me, I must say, and I think that it is very clear, some of these situations we have at the county level are money-driven.
And it's all about politics. The president himself has seen the necessity to promise that we're going to entrench the CDF, which already the Supreme Court has declared unconstitutional. But he has seen the political necessity of ensuring that members of the National Assembly have that fund. And he has also seen the necessity, political necessity, of ensuring that the senators have a similar fund. The governors, too, should see the necessity, even if only political, for the ward representatives to have a fund as well.
Let me first of all take from Rebecca. How can, I think she asked about Mwangaza Kawera. She may not be a team player. She is not able to bring her team together. That is why she was even impeached before she assumed office. And at the same breath, when the president marshaled Parliament and they work together, we say is micromanaging Parliament, and that Parliament have become a puppet. Sometimes, but I want to say something about National Government Constituency Development Fund, as well as the Ward Development Fund. But I must warn you that, I was elected by members of Parliament and members of Senate. So those are my electorate. So I must be very careful when discussing about them, because they elected me. But the truth will always be the truth. We elected 6 people the same day. The president, the senator, the governor, the member of Parliament, women rep, and MCA. Some have a kitty. Because they had a manifesto, they sold for them to be elected. The president had a manifesto that is sold so that he will be elected. We give him resources to implement his manifesto. The women rep had a manifesto that she sold to the electorate. We gave them the resources, the kitty called National Government Affirmative Action Fund, to be able to implement on that manifesto. However small it may be in the face of the President manifesto. We also had a member of Parliament selling a manifesto. We gave them a kitty. However, this manifesto may not be as big as that one of the governor. We also gave the governor resources to be able to implement the manifesto. Not as big as that one of the president, but a relatively kitty that is enough for that manifesto. Surely the ward representative, the MCA, also need at least a kitty to be able to implement on that particular manifesto. If we don't give any of the people that we elected at the same day, then we don't give all of them. we should not give some and not some. Yet they all had a manifesto they sold for them to be elected. You can't give others to be able to implement their manifesto so that they seek the re-election.
Yet the role of the MC and the member of the National Assembly, it has nothing to do with a development at the county level or at whatever at the constituency
oversight.
level. It's oversight, representation, and legislation.
Yes, and the moment you have oversight, and again you are given to implement, you cannot oversight something that you're implementing because conflict of interest.
It's oversight of the national government, of the executive.
Yes.
Not necessarily oversight of development at the constituency level.
Yes, and that is why I'm telling you, the problem is that if that is the role, because the role of the county assembly is almost the same as the role of the member of parliament, whether women rep or single member constituency or the Senate, their role are almost similar. But here is where we have given some a kitty to be able to implement on their manifesto, some we did not. Either we don't give all of them or we give.
Is it therefore the conversation that we should be having is on changing the law, and I think you mentioned this, to ensure that the roles of these representatives at the ward level and the constituency level include some element of development so that we can justify this kind of funding?
Exactly my point. So that's why I raised the argument of, do we understand the role of the member of parliament and the role of member of county assembly? Because, for instance, if then we are saying that they have a role at the constituency and the ward level to ensure that they're implementing developmental programs, then of course that comes with a budgetary allocation, that comes with financial implication, because every single thing we know in the world is you need to implement, there is definitely a financial implication. But then also managing the public, because here comes a member of parliament, like I clearly alluded to earlier, they've gone back home to their constituency. These citizens, me and you, we expect this member of parliament to oversee something as service, and clearly that's not his or her role. So that's why you find even, of course, the member of county assembly as well is caught in a fix, because they're wondering how else do we, because there's a degree of also showing that you're working to your electorate, as Heshimi is here saying, but at the same time, does the law even warrant you, first of all, to implement the development? So we need to harmonize our expectations as citizens, and I mean, there's a lot of civic education that needs to come for us to understand, manage the expectations of whom we have elected, so that I do not come and tell my MCA, you haven't done this, regarding this particular road, yet that is not within his scope. But if we are saying that that's the way to go, then of course we make it very clear, there is no lacuna, there is no ambiguity, that indeed this is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doing implementation at the ward level, and therefore, again, that invites a budgetary allocation.
And at the national level, we've embraced that conversation, and that's what is happening with the National Dialogue Committee, that you dismiss. Where else can we have this conversation? Because even previous attempts to talk about any possible change in the laws did not include entrenchment of such funds. This is the first time we're seeing a proper attempt, and it's coming straight from the executive.
Let me tell you, is this system of government we are having in Kenya tested elsewhere that we can say it was proven working? This is a system that we are trying in Kenya. And when you look around the world, you realize that the most progressive countries, developed countries, they are not doing what we are doing. They have never even tried. So a member of parliament is not supposed to be given a kitty to run, for the obvious reason. He needs to oversight, he needs to defend people, he needs to legislate or laws that stop people from looting public money. So we cannot therefore say we have given him or her a role to play when it comes to matters of money. So I want to say that what is motivating counties to start the same conversation is this CTF. If we can do away with CTF, and that conversation will end. Number two, the court already pronounced on that issue. It was declared null and void. So why is William Ruto implementing or giving members of parliament CTF? It is illegal. Number three, how can we say this government respect the rule of law? when the court has pronounced on a matter and the government just ignore and implement. I think that is the biggest question we need to ask ourselves.
Okay.
And the president needs to know that after 5 years, because I know he's going to serve for 5 years, that is sudden, but for the second term, it's just for the people to decide. So after 5 years, we will charge President William Ruto about what he has done for us.
Okay.
Has he done anything that he promised hustlers? For instance, he promised us employment opportunities. He's now raising petrol each and every time. So it's killing. When you increase the cost of production, you are scaring investors to come in Kenya.
Hold that thought, Callistus, because we are about to we need to take a break.
But I think
we will be back because of time. We'll be back.
We need to be factual. Because if you say, how can William Ruto give MP CDF? Surely you are
he gave them because
very ignorant. You know, because the budget process, it is Parliament that actually allocates the budget to every institution.
Okay.
So when you ask about how William, you can't be
the Parliament is not free.
than that.
Hold that thought. We'll come back to the same debate. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. Let's take a break. We'll be back to wrap up this conversation. Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli, and I can tell you for sure, even during the breaks, the discussions are even hotter than sometimes what we have on air. I'm still in studio with the Honorable David Ole Sankok, Rebecca, and Callistus here, and we wanted to wrap.
I was putting the
yes, there's something you were saying, yes.
Yes, I was putting the record straight. First of all, if you say Parliament is captured, and you elected these members of Parliament, and you are saying that they are thieves, you are an angel. Why were you not elected? 70% of members of Parliament have come back. They were elected. It seems then they are thieves electing thieves. Because then, if you say that you are an angel, and you yourself, you are not elected, and you had an opportunity to table your own self to be able to elect. And lastly, we can't say that William Ruto is giving members of Parliament CDF. The budget process, you know it. It is done in Parliament. National Assembly is the only institution that have the role in budgeting. In fact, State House have to beg and have to table their reasons why they want an increase from Parliament.
Yet, Mheshimiwa, we know that the budget making process is started off with the executive.
National Treasury.
Yes, the proposal comes to Parliament. So issues like NGCDF are included in that proposal to Parliament.
Yes, and then Parliament itself will decide whether it is viable
of course it benefits
or it is not
directly.
viable. No, listen, whether it is beneficial to you, because everything is beneficial to us. They make the budget proposals. Why do they make the budget proposal? They are the implementers. They know where they have gone 70%, the projects that are 60%, the projects that are not priority first of all. So they will bring those budget process. And then the Parliament interrogate and allocate. It is the sole institution that have the mandate to allocate.
What is the role of
Allow me to
What is the role of
just briefly respond to Mheshimiwa.
Judiciary.
Okay, let's allow Rebecca.
When the money is stolen, they are the ones that will now make sure that the thieves are...
Judiciary is there for checks and balances.
Let's allow Rebecca. Rebecca, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. In relation to what Mheshimiwa has stated here, as a country, we are so ripe for very honest, very principled leaders. But I must state that right now what we have envisioned in the last couple of years is coalition of political parties that come and disenfranchise Wanjiko, Onyango, Kipchoge, wherever we are across the country as an electorate, where we're not able to bring this honest, this principled, and I dare say competent leaders. Because right at the nomination stage, I have to say this because he's really brought in a matter that I've been wanting to voice out. But right at the nomination stage, the political parties do not give us the opportunity to have the right leaders. We all know how these leaders, whatever position anyone would be vying for, we know how they get these tickets. So by the time Wanjiko, Onyango, Kipchoge, they are going to the ballot box, they have no choice but to elect the lesser evil, okay? Because already these political party vehicles do not present. So I, as Rebecca, I would want to present myself definitely as a person who's able to, who's ready to serve.
But Rebecca,
then when a political party
there's a provision of
independent candidates.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But I also dare say that the independent route as well it is gaining momentum, and I'm very happy because right now we have parliamentarians that have gone in, even in big constituencies, and there is a momentum. You know, we have to start from somewhere. So there is a momentum where now the citizens are beginning to be aware. By the way, we do not need leaders that are attached to a political party. But to a great extent, we are still a political party vehicle in this country. Therefore, I must also put that ball back to him because he's already in that league. Can the electorate be given the opportunity, right, through the political parties to have the right leaders? Okay. Yeah, and they're there in plenty.
Calista, this conversation has moved now to the conduct of the National Assembly and other parliamentarians. We were talking about MCAs and whether or not they deserve the word fund. Do you think that this particular House of Parliament, the National Assembly, for example, has mismanaged its role, hence these allegations or perception, rather, that it is under the capture of the executive?
Yes, I believe so. And I want to take this opportunity to warn Kenyans that President William Ruto should be the last president in the Republic of Kenya enjoying maturity. We need to give our democracy effectiveness by electing people, not just voting. When you vote as a suit, you are just saying you are closing your eyes and are committing all your dues to one person. So I'm telling the people that we need to change on how we are doing politics.
Do you think, for example, that the conversation about political party fidelity that's before the National Dialogue Committee could be or could in some way remedy that issue?
It cannot. I've just told you the bipartisan talk that is going on is just a waste of resources and time. It cannot in any way push for something that we can say it will be implemented. It is unconstitutional. And the state cannot start any conversation about the Constitution of Kenya, any conversation about any law. Only the people and maybe the members of parliament.
Don't you think that it is a forum that could possibly be a gateway to that conversation, that once those issues are canvassed, then they can be presented to the people for their note, and then hence it will be a popular initiative?
Which people? We have not asked them to start any discussion about it. So we are saying, let the people start exercising their sovereignty by not focusing on nonsensical debate. Because we are focusing on bipartisan talk, which is a waste of public money, and it's also just a scheme to control Raila Odinga. Because we had issues during mass demonstration. And that's why, us from Linda Chami, we are proposing that on 9th of December, we are going to start a peaceful process, a peace process where people should now start a different discussion about how can we now proceed, because we have had many of violent way of trying to solve our issues, and we have never solved them. The first liberation, we caught it through bloodshed. The second liberation, the same. Now, the third liberation should happen where economic liberation, where people are supposed to be empowered economically. People need to now advance in terms of agriculture, in terms of production. So we need to start conversation on how can we now start talking as the people. And when we start talking, we are also going to educate people, not to vote as a suit, because when you keep somebody, I may vote for William Ruto next election, but I may not support a member of parliament that is aligned to him. The reason is that we need to give him reason to work.
Okay.
He's not supposed to be having some people whom he's micromanaging through the party structures to do whatever he wants to do.
Okay. Honorable Sankoku, you are a member of the National Assembly, the 12th Parliament.
Yes.
Do you feel, watching from outside now, that this particular house is under different kind of behavior, that they are acting differently from how the house you are a member of acted?
National Assembly have always been the best representation of the people, and the way they are conducting their business is what the Constitution actually prescribed for them. And I'm sure National Assembly of Kenya is one of the best in the world, and one of the most performing in the world.
They've been accused of being under the control of the executive. What will,
that is an accusation.
Give reason.
All accusations, even Fred, I can accuse you of being a thief. But unless it is proven that you are actually a thief, that is just an accusation. And it's an accusation from people who are outsiders. I think you have heard Rebecca, she have said, no, we cannot use political parties, we are being strangled at the political party. You gave her a way out, because the Constitution have checks and balance. You told her, you are an angel. Just contest as independent.
Not my words, though.
Convince the electorate, and they will elect you, because there are those who have been elected as independent candidates. So all these are just mere accusations. But my friend have discussed about the bipartisan talks. And for the first time, I think we are together on this, because this bipartisan talk, it is unconstitutional, it is hot air, it is null and void, because they purport to change the Constitution. The Constitution can only be changed through a referendum. And what will give birth to a referendum? Two ways, according to our Constitution. The popular initiative, where the citizen, not those in leadership, if you are a member of parliament, you have an opportunity to belay the parliamentary initiative. If you are a president, you have an opportunity to use the majority leader in National Assembly to be able to start the parliamentary initiative. If you are the opposition leader, you have the opportunity to use the minority leader in National Assembly to bring the parliamentary initiative. The popular initiative is only for common citizens to start. Now, I'm with him on that. So that is the two ways that we can start.
And I'll ask you, because of time,
parliamentary
to give your final comments as we wrap up.
Oh, okay. Now, I think you are taking us very fast. So,
unfortunately, we are out of time.
Yes. So that is the ways that you can start. And why I said this is what and constitutional, null and void bipartisan talk. Because Article 1 of our Constitution give all the sovereign power to the people.
Yes.
The people can exercise that sovereign power directly through a popular initiative or indirectly through their representative. elected representative through a parliamentary initiative. These bipartisan talks have strangers that cannot do a parliamentary initiative, that does not have the sovereign power delegated to them. Eugene Wamalwa, Kalonzo Musyoka.
They are Kenyans.
No, they were not elected. Either Kenyans exercise their sovereign power directly or indirectly through elected leaders. Okay. So the bipartisan talk, by inclusion of two strangers who are not elected, then that become null and void. By the way, if you have seen the Kenya Kwanza side, all of them, because we are aware of Article 1 of the Constitution, all of them are elected leaders. It is only from the Azimio side that they have people who are not elected. Okay. That disqualified that bipartisan talk as hot air, unconstitutional, null and void.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Sankok. Rebecca?
I think we are all leaders in our own space, and it is very sad for me to sit here and to hear ourselves pronounce ourselves to the fact that we are talking of a process that we have two principals, MP Kimani Ichung'wah, representing the current government, okay, appointed to be there not by default, not accidentally, but he has received that particular authorization and standing to be there by our CEO, the office, the president of this country, okay? Then on the other side, we have Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka representing the opposition. Now, whether the bipartisan committee has a legal standing, that's a question that, of course, that will be deliberated. But the point for me, I look at it that is, as again, our misuse of our intellectual capacity as a country, whereby whenever we want to tackle our political quagmire, we hoodwink the electorate again to say that we are having this process whereby we are going to take up all your issues, sum them up in a report and act on them. So it is not a shock, neither is it a surprise to have this committee sitting, because that's what we are used to. This country, however civilized we are, we take on matters, we can take a political vehicle. I do not see this more of a legal vehicle. Okay. I see this one of a political process that is trying to unlock what it is that we are used to, the contestations and people feeling that those that are in opposition lose out. Okay. My point is this, it is very sad, and I must state here, that if this committee has even been given extension to continue taking up matters from the public, and every person there of every walk of life have actually come before them, then it defeats logic for them to continue carrying on the mandate, and yet people have taken their time to go and take matters of national importance to the committee. Okay. Therefore, I would state, whether it is a legal process that has a legal standing, whether it is political, whatever it is that they have been given there, it is not, MP Kimani Ichung'wah has not taken himself there. Okay. So the current government is right at the center of it. Whether they are deceitful or not, Kenyan people want to see the issues and the recommendations put in that report to our framework. Thank you.
Okay. And because of time, very briefly, Callistus, just a final comment.
Now, because Mheshimiwa is here and is a friend of the president, I want to send him to call and tell him that I saw something which Moses Kuria said that we need to be paying for services at Huduma Center. So I want to tell Mheshimiwa to tell the president that that is double taxation. We pay for taxes for us to get services. Then somebody is saying, when receiving those services, we need to pay for it. That is double taxation. Number two, the president needs to start championing for tax reform, because over-taxation will not bring investment. Over-taxation will not give him money. So he needs to start that conversation of tax reform in Kenya, because it worked in India, it has worked elsewhere. Okay. So we can say it will be able to help us start economic activities.
And we don't have time
There's something that I have to
begin this conversation.
If I don't say, farmers will,
very briefly, 15 seconds.
Farmers will be against me in this country.
15 seconds.
You know, Fred, where is the cost of living? People have always demonstrated for their salaries to be increased. They should also be aware that the salary of that farmer is the same maize flour, the same food, that they want it to be lowered so that we can give citizens the purchasing power. But we cannot reduce the cost of food in this country. Okay. Our maize, we cannot sell them less than 6,000 per bag. We'll sell them at 20,000 per bag.
Honorable David Ole Sankok, MP, East Africa Legislative Assembly, Wafula Kalista's political analyst, and Rebecca Wangui, governance and human rights advocate, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation as we take a look at the headlines, helping us understand what's troubling us or what is at the top of our agenda. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your contributions to this debate. Allow me now to go through these editorial comments as we come to the end of this session. Now, as the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exams approach, the spectre of cheating in exams looms large, and it is imperative that you confront this issue head-on. The recent report from the National Assembly Committee on Education confirming cases of malpractice in last year's exams serves as a stark reminder that this problem is far from being resolved. The government, as well as all stakeholders in the education system, bears a significant responsibility in ensuring the integrity of examinations. The rampant cases of cheating not only undermine the credibility of the education system, but also have severe consequences for the future of this country. The concept of a fair and equal opportunity to access higher education is at the core of any democratic society. When students can secure a place in universities by cheating, it not only devalues the educational system, but also deprives deserving students of their rightful opportunities. Moreover, cases of exam cheating are a reflection of a broader issue, the normalization of dishonesty in our society. When students grow up believing that success can only be achieved through deceit, it sets a dangerous precedent. Is it a wonder that this mindset has seeped into other aspects of our lives, perpetuating a culture of corruption and dishonesty? The government should enforce stringent measures to deter and punish those involved in cheating, even as investigations are conducted to identify the root causes of this malpractice. Parents, teachers, and communities too must instill the importance of integrity and hard work in our youth. A society that nurtures its learners to succeed through integrity and hard work is one that can aspire to eliminate corruption and other unethical practices. And that is a TV47 editorial comment this morning. Shortly, we'll be heading to Kisumu, where we have our team, Radio 47, while on our roadshow, we'll be having a sit-down with one of the, I think, the Deputy Governor of Kisumu, and we'll be joining them for that conversation shortly.